Welcome to Hoyt's Bowhunting Whitetails. Today is the 28th of December. It's 4 o'clock p.m. Normally you would think we should be getting ready to go out and hunt. But we have decided not to hunt today, and I don't think we'll hunt tomorrow either. Hoyt's Bowhunting Whitetails is brought to you by Redneck Blinds, Code of Silence Apparel, Hunt Stand Pro Whitetail App, Whitetail Institute, research equals results. B3 releases, XO broadheads, exact sights, Muddy Outdoors tree stands, Stealth Cam trail cameras, and Hoyt. You know, sometimes it just makes sense to stay out of the spots and don't go in there until the opportunity is good, or at least until there's some chance. I pulled I took a look at all of the photos from my trail cameras this morning. The way I've got my cell camera set up, I've got 16 cameras on this farm, and they all deliver their images at midnight. So this morning when I got up, I took a look. There was not, I don't know if there was even one daylight photo on 16 cameras from yesterday.
Of a buck or of deer in general?
Of a deer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
We'll post in the next little segment here while we're talking. I'll go back and try to find what daylight pictures there were.
There are daylight pictures of us.
Yeah, we were up in there doing some work in one of the plots, or actually we found that shed antler.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll post whatever we had, and there may be a little moment here with no pictures, but I'll take a look. Very, very minimal. I guess that's the point. This time of the year, the deer tend to be very unforgiving. You know, during the rut, you can get away with more because there's so much more chaos in the woods. The bucks are moving around a lot. They don't really pay as much attention to what's taking place. The does are getting chased around. Again, there's a lot of things going on, but this time of the year, there's only bedding and feeding and staying alive. And if they've already gone through a firearm season, they've become pretty good at staying alive.
Do you think that their level of skittishness would be decreased if it's warm and there's plenty of food, because that's less stress on them? So, I mean, if it's like a freezing cold winter and they don't have enough food, obviously they would be like super stressed out. But on a year like this, do you think that they would be less like high strung?
No, I think what you'll find is, and this is probably a very good talking point, they just don't move in daylight.
They just don't have to?
Right.
Yeah.
So the only thing that really gets them moving well during the late season is the cold, and to a lesser extent snow, or equal extent. I mean, if they get a foot of snow and you've got some kind of a standing crop, they're going to really hit that, because a lot of the normal stuff that they would browse on, or the mast they would eat off the ground, is a lot harder to find. So they're going to go with something that's easier, and that would be any kind of standing crop, anything that's easy to, you know, for them to find and consume. Because when it gets really cold, they're all about saving calories, taking in as much as they can and burning as little as they can. So you'll even find them, if it gets really cold, bedded right next to their feeding areas, because then they don't have to travel to and fro. They can just bed close, get up, eat, and bed back down again. And that's a pattern that you don't see this time of the year. I shouldn't say that.
Not this conditions.
This year, under these conditions,
Yeah.
we're not seeing that. There's no beds anywhere around the feeding areas. So the point being, they don't have to really do much during the day. They don't have that same sense of urgency, and they've already been potentially run around a little bit during the firearm season, so they're even more reluctant to move during daylight. You throw all those conditions together and you come up with deer that are very unforgiving. So what that means is, if you bump them off a feeding area, like let's say you go in and you hunt it at a time that doesn't make any sense, you're leaving at the end of legal shooting time, the deer are starting to kind of work their way toward that spot, maybe for some nighttime feeding. They know you're there. You know, they hear you. He always finds a way to chew on some bone. As soon as we start doing an interview, we're gonna have to move a little bit here. Let's move. All right, we'll try again. So let's say you're leaving your afternoon hunting location and it's dark and you think you're sneaking your way back to the vehicle or back to camp or whatever, but there are deer that are approaching that spot. And they hear you. No doubt they might smell where you walked, you know, as they're coming in there. Maybe even a couple of them got there right at last light and you had to bump those deer when you go to leave. The chances of that spot being productive again anytime soon is going to be really low. So, like I said, they're very unforgiving.
So it only makes sense if you have daylight pictures of a specific buck that you were wanting to hunt, because just going in and like kind of hoping for the best is risky.
Yep.
This time of year and with these conditions.
That's right. And the only exception to that would be if there's a really hard cold front coming.
Yeah.
You could take your chances then.
Like
But
next week, it looks like here back down into like the 20s. Because right now it's like 45 degrees and no wind and it is comfortable.
yeah, it's going to be in the 30s tonight.
Yeah.
But towards the end of next week, I think single digits at night.
Yeah.
And then even the teens, I think, here during the day. That's enough to probably get them going again. But in the meantime, it's going to be very, very hit or miss on catching really anything, let alone the buck that you're hunting.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is maybe a little off topic, but do you think that if deer got pushed into a new area during gun season, or like whatever, they ended up over here or on a different area than they're used to living, would they stay where they got pushed to, or would they go back to where they were used to being?
I think they stay for a while. That's kind of my experience. You know, we haven't had a ton of that here, but in southern Iowa we had a fair amount of that because there was a lot of habitat around us and the deer would find us during the winter. And we always had sheds from bucks that we never saw again. So they must have stayed through the winter and then left again. So that's kind of my guess. I think there might be a couple of them that I've got on camera that are strangers that came in during the gun season, but I can't even say that 100%.
Yeah.
But
Interesting.
yeah, that would be the typical. They would stay for a while, eat, get comfortable, you know, then eventually they'd drift back to where they came from.
There's a lot of food here, and on a year where maybe it was colder and there was less food in the area around, do you think that would be a big draw to deer in the late season to come in here, or would they just not even know that it exists?
I think if they've been through here, you know, if this was some part of their range, then we would definitely see those deer if they were stressed.
I gotcha.
Yeah, because, you know, the best case scenario, if you got a lot of food, is for it to be pretty nasty and then the deer come looking for it.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're just going to go roaming. It's kind of like during the rut. That same question comes up. People always say, well, if you don't have very many does, the bucks are going to leave. Well, they're only going to leave if their range has overlapped an area where there was more does, and they have to know about it.
Because otherwise they don't know that that's possible.
No.
Like this is their entire experience.
That's right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because they don't have communication systems, so
Right.
they can't learn about things that they haven't experienced firsthand. Maybe there's something instinctive that causes them to roam. I don't know. I never really saw that during the rut, that the bucks all left. And we had a lot more bucks than does on that farm in southern Iowa for a while. They didn't leave. So I'm guessing it's the same thing with the food. If they don't know there's food someplace else, they're not just going to pick up and start, you know, covering miles.
I gotcha.
But yeah, I think the point is, and we're probably closing in on the end of this, there are times when it makes sense just to not hunt. You know, as much as we want to, this time of the year is probably when it makes the most sense to be super cautious and super selective on the days that you hunt. Don't be too impatient this time of the season. You know, as long as there's still an opportunity later for the temperature to get colder and the conditions to get better, just wait until that time comes. Or as the very minimum, watch your trail camera photos and don't go into spots to hunt until you see evidence that, you know, the behavior is starting to move in your direction. Well, we appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you right back here again soon for the next episode of Hoyt's Bowhunting Whitetails. And remember to always
Dream big.